The camera opens on a gray October afternoon, where autumn leaves dance through the air like forgotten dreams. Rain begins to fall in gentle whispers against the pavement, creating a symphony of solitude that seems to call to lost souls. Ivy walks through the empty streets of downtown, her auburn curls dampened by the mist, honey-brown eyes scanning the world with the intensity of someone who sees art in everything. She clutches her worn leather sketchbook against her chest, an umbrella forgotten in her other hand as she welcomes the rain's embrace. The narrator's voice begins, soft and contemplative. Some people run from storms. Others dance in them. Ivy had always been a dancer, finding beauty in the broken places where others saw only ruin. On this particular afternoon, with her art portfolio rejected for the third time this month, she needed to find something beautiful more than she needed to stay dry. Ivy pauses at the entrance to Meridian Park, a forgotten corner of the city where old oak trees stand like sentinels over cracked pathways and weathered benches. The rain has driven away the usual joggers and dog walkers, leaving only the sound of water on leaves and the distant hum of traffic. She pushes through the iron gates, her shoes splashing through puddles that reflect the gray sky like mirrors to another world. The park feels different in the rain, more alive, more mysterious, as if the water has awakened something that sleeps in the sunshine. Ivy finds her usual spot, a bench beneath an ancient willow whose branches create a natural canopy. She opens her sketchbook and begins to draw, her pencil capturing the melancholy beauty of the rain-soaked landscape. The narrator continues, art was Ivy's language for the feelings she couldn't speak aloud. In her sketches, she could make the world as beautiful as she knew it could be, if only people would stop and really look. As Ivy sketches, lost in her own world, a movement catches her peripheral vision. Through the curtain of rain, she glimpses a figure sitting on a bench across the pathway, completely still, as if they've been carved from the storm itself. The figure is a young woman, perhaps Ivy's age, with skin so pale it seems to glow in the gray light. Long black hair falls like a waterfall down her back, untouched by the rain that should have soaked it through. But most striking of all are the white bandages wrapped around her eyes, layer upon layer, secured with what looks like medical tape. Ivy's artist's eye is immediately drawn to the tragic beauty of the scene. The woman sits with perfect posture, her hands folded in her lap, facing the rain as if she can see it dancing. She wears a simple black dress that seems untouched by the weather, and her lips are curved in the faintest of smiles. The narrator observes, there are moments when the universe places exactly what we need in front of us, disguised as something we don't expect. Ivy had been searching for inspiration, for something to make her heart race again. She hadn't expected to find it in the form of a mysterious woman who sat in storms like others sit in sunshine. Ivy's sketching hand moves without conscious thought, capturing the woman's silhouette on paper. The rain seems to fall more gently around the mysterious figure, as if nature itself is being careful not to disturb her peace. After several minutes of silent observation, Ivy gathers her courage and approaches. Her footsteps splash through puddles, but the woman doesn't turn her head. Only when Ivy is close enough to speak does the woman acknowledge her presence. I can hear your heartbeat, the woman says, her voice like velvet wrapped around midnight. It's racing. Are you afraid? Ivy stops, surprised by the directness of the question. I know. I'm curious. I'm an artist, and I couldn't help but notice. You're sitting in the rain like it's the most natural thing in the world. The woman's smile deepens, transforming her face from merely beautiful to absolutely radiant. Rain tells stories that sunshine never could. It whispers secrets that only those who listen can hear. Would you like to hear what it's saying today? Ivy finds herself drawn closer, her umbrella forgotten as she takes a seat on the opposite end of the bench. I'd love to. The woman tilts her head slightly, as if concentrating on sounds beyond normal hearing. Today, the rain is singing about loneliness, about souls who wander through life searching for someone who will see them truly. It's a sad song, but beautiful in its honesty. The narrator reflects. In that moment, Ivy understood that she had stumbled upon something extraordinary. This wasn't just a woman caught in the rain. This was someone who spoke the language of storms, who found poetry in precipitation. This was someone who might understand why Ivy painted her feelings instead of speaking them. "I'm Ivy," she offers, extending her hand before realizing the gesture might be awkward for someone who cannot see. But the woman turns toward her with uncanny precision, as if she can sense exactly where Ivy sits. "Nara," she replies, and when their hands touch, Ivy feels a jolt of electricity that has nothing to do with the storm. Nara's skin is impossibly cold, like marble that has been left in winter shadow. But her grip is firm, real, grounding. "You're an artist," she states rather than asks. "I can feel the creativity radiating from you like heat from a fire." "How did you?" "I notice things others miss," Nara explains, releasing Ivy's hand with what seems like reluctance. "When you lose one sense, the others become more aware. I can hear the way you breathe when you're concentrating, smell the graphite on your fingers, feel the way you move, deliberate, purposeful, like someone who shapes the world with their hands." Ivy stares at this enigmatic woman, her artist's mind already cataloging the elegant line of her neck, the way her lips curve when she speaks, the mystery of what lies beneath those pristine white bandages. The bandages, Ivy ventures carefully. Are they permanent? Nara's expression shifts, becoming more guarded. "It's a medical condition. My eyes are sensitive to light. The bandages protect them and protect others from having to see something unpleasant." There's a weight to her words that suggests a deeper story, but Ivy doesn't push. Instead, she finds herself saying, "I don't think anything about you could be unpleasant." The compliment seems to catch Nara off guard. For a moment, her composure cracks, revealing something vulnerable underneath. "You don't know me yet," she whispers. "Then let me," Ivy replies, surprising herself with her boldness. "I come here to sketch most afternoons. Same time, same bench. If you're ever here again—" "I'm always here," Nara says, her voice carrying a strange mix of sadness and hope. "Rain or shine, I'm always here." As if summoned by her words, the rain begins to fall harder, and Ivy finally remembers her umbrella. She opens it and scoots closer to Nara on the bench. "Would you like to share?" Nara's smile returns, soft and grateful. "I'd like that very much." They sit together in comfortable silence, watching the rain create rivers in the pathways and listening to the symphony of water on leaves. The narrator concludes, "Sometimes the most profound connections begin not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with the simple act of sharing shelter in a storm." Ivy couldn't have known that this moment would change everything, that she was about to fall in love with someone whose very existence challenged everything she thought she knew about love, beauty, and the nature of curses. Building the connection. 3 days later, Ivy returns to the park at the same time, her heart racing with anticipation and uncertainty. She tells herself she's just coming to sketch, but the untouched drawings in her pad from the previous day tell a different story. She's been too distracted thinking about Nara to focus on anything else. The afternoon is overcast but dry, and Ivy wonders if Nara will still be there without the rain to keep her company. But as she rounds the bend in the pathway, there she is, sitting on the same bench, in the same position, as if she never left. Today, Nara wears a deep burgundy dress that makes her pale skin seem to glow. Her bandages are fresh and white, and her black hair is braided with small silver threads that catch what little light filters through the clouds. "I wondered if you'd come back," Nara says before Ivy can announce herself. Most people don't, after the first meeting. Ivy settles onto the bench beside her, noting how Nara shifts slightly to make room, a gesture that suggests she's pleased rather than merely polite. "Most people don't intrigue me enough to make me want to come back." "Intrigue," Nara repeats, testing the word. "Is that what this is?" Among other things, Ivy opens her sketchbook and begins to draw, but today her subject is obvious. "Tell me about yourself, Nara. What do you do when you're not sitting in parks, being mysterious?" Nara laughs, a sound like silver bells touched by wind. "I read Braille books, mostly, but I've memorized so many stories that I can recite them word for word. I listen to music, not just hearing it, but feeling it, letting it paint pictures in my mind. I walk through the city at night when it's quiet, learning its rhythms and secrets." "You walk alone at night?" Ivy's pencil pauses, concern creeping into her voice. "I'm not helpless," Nara says gently, "and I'm not afraid of the dark. When you live in darkness, you learn to make it your friend rather than your enemy." The narrator observes, "There was something in the way Nara spoke about darkness that made Ivy suspect she meant more than just her blindness. But asking direct questions felt like prying into a treasure chest that might slam shut if opened too quickly." Instead, Ivy shares her own story. She talks about her art, her dreams of having her work displayed in galleries, her struggles with rejection and self-doubt. She describes the way colors make her feel, how she sees emotions in shapes and shadows, how she believes that art can heal the world if people would just pay attention. Nara listens with the intensity of someone who has learned to gather meaning from every word, every pause, every breath. "Show me," she says when Ivy finishes describing a particularly vivid sunset she painted last month. "Show you. Describe it to me. Make me see it through your words." Ivy closes her eyes, remembering. The sky was on fire, not angry fire, but the kind that burns in a fireplace when you're safe inside on a cold night. The clouds were purple and gold, like they'd been brushed with melted jewels. And right at the horizon, where the sun was setting, everything went soft and pink, like the world was blushing. When Ivy opens her eyes, she finds Nara's face turned toward her, and despite the bandages, Ivy can feel the intensity of her attention. "You see the world as it dreams of being seen," Nara says softly. "No wonder you're an artist. What do you see?" Ivy asks. "I mean, what do you experience that I might miss?" Nara is quiet for a long moment, then speaks in a voice that seems to come from somewhere far away. "I see the shape of people's souls. Not with my eyes, obviously, but with something deeper. I can tell when someone is lying, when they're afraid, when they're in love. I can feel the weight of secrets, the texture of dreams, the color of heartbreak." "What do you see when you look at me?" Another pause, longer this time. "Kindness," Nara finally says. "Curiosity without cruelty. A heart that bruises easily, but heals stronger. And something else, something I haven't felt in a very long time." "What?" "Hope." The word hangs between them like a bridge, and Ivy finds herself wanting to cross it. But Nara stands abruptly, her composure returning like armor. "I should go. The sun is setting, and I have things to do." Before Ivy can respond, Nara is walking away, her steps sure and confident despite her blindness. Ivy watches her go, noting how the shadows seem to part around her, how the very air seems to shimmer in her wake. The narrator concludes, Ivy sat alone on the bench, her sketch only half finished, her heart racing with questions she couldn't articulate. She didn't know that in that moment, walking away from her, Nara was fighting every instinct that screamed at her to turn back. Because hope, for someone like Nara, was the most dangerous emotion of all. A week passes, and Ivy finds herself drawn to the park every day, sometimes twice. She tells herself she's just expanding her artistic horizons, exploring new subjects and lighting conditions. But her sketchbook tells a different story, page after page filled with attempts to capture Nara's face, her posture, the way she moves through space like she's dancing to music only she can hear. On the fourth day, Ivy brings a thermos of hot chocolate and 2 cups, hoping to find Nara there. The afternoon is crisp and clear, with golden sunlight filtering through the changing leaves. Ivy arrives early and waits, watching the park slowly fill with the usual afternoon crowd, joggers, dog walkers, mothers with strollers. But Nara doesn't appear until the sun begins to set and the crowd thins out. She emerges from the shadows between the trees like she's been waiting for the right moment, when the light is soft and the energy is calm. "I brought hot chocolate," Ivy says by way of greeting, holding up the thermos. "I thought you might like something warm." Nara's face lights up with surprise and pleasure. "That's very thoughtful. I usually prefer the solitude, but I find I'm making exceptions lately." They sit together on their bench, sharing the sweet warmth of the chocolate, and Ivy notices how Nara's hands shake slightly as she holds a cup. Not from cold, but from something else, nervousness, perhaps, or the effort of maintaining control. "Are you okay?" Ivy asks gently. Nara sets down her cup and turns toward Ivy with that uncanny precision. Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone. Ivy's heart quickens. Of course. I dream about colors, Nara confesses. Even though I've never seen them, I dream in vivid, impossible colors that don't exist in your world. I dream about the way love looks, the way music tastes, the way hope feels when it touches your skin. That's beautiful, Ivy breathes. Is it? Or is it just sad, a blind woman dreaming of things she'll never experience? Ivy reaches out instinctively, covering Nara's hand with her own. It's beautiful because it's yours. Because you're creating something from nothing, imagining colors that could exist, that should exist. Nara's fingers intertwine with Ivy's, and again there's that electric connection, that sense of two souls recognizing each other across an impossible distance. I've been alone for so long, Nara whispers. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone want to know me, to see me as more than just this. She gestures to her bandages. What happened to your eyes? Ivy asks, the question finally emerging despite her fear of pushing too hard. Nara's grip on her hand tightens. It's complicated. Let's just say I'm not like other people, Ivy. I'm not sure I'm even normal. Normal is overrated, Ivy says firmly. Normal is beige walls and boring conversations and never feeling anything deeply enough to matter. You're not normal, and thank God for that. For a moment, Nara's carefully maintained composure cracks completely. Her free hand rises to touch her bandages, and Ivy can see the war playing out across her face, the desire to share her truth battling against the fear of rejection. There are things about me, Nara says carefully, that might frighten you. Things that have frightened others. Try me. Nara is quiet for so long that Ivy begins to wonder if she's overstepped. But then, in a voice barely above a whisper, Nara begins to speak. I've lived in this city for 15 years, but I've never aged a day. I remember things that happened centuries ago, as if they were yesterday. I can hear people's thoughts when they're afraid, smell their emotions, feel their hearts beating from across a room. Ivy's logical mind tells her this is impossible, but her artist's heart recognizes truth when it hears it. Go on, she says simply. My eyes. Nara's voice breaks slightly. They're not just blind, Ivy. They're cursed. When I remove these bandages, when people see what's underneath, they run. They always run. What do they see? Nara turns away, her voice becoming distant. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that proves the world is stranger and more terrible than most people can accept. The narrator reflects. In that moment, Ivy stood at a crossroads. She could dismiss Nara's words as fantasy, as the beautiful delusions of someone who had been isolated too long. Or she could step forward into a mystery that might transform everything she thought she knew about love, about reality, about the thin line between dreams and nightmares. I don't scare easily, Ivy says, and she means it. Nara's smile is sad and grateful and terrified all at once. Famous last words, she murmurs. But she doesn't pull her hand away from Ivy's, and they sit together in the gathering twilight, two souls balanced on the edge of something that could be either wonderful or catastrophic. The growing attraction. 2 weeks into their strange friendship, Ivy realizes she's falling in love with a woman whose face she's never fully seen. The recognition hits her one afternoon as she's painting in her studio apartment, trying to capture the way Nara's voice sounds when she laughs, like music being born from silence. The painting is a mess of colors and abstract shapes, but somehow it captures something essential about Nara that traditional portraiture never could. Ivy stares at it, her heart racing as she acknowledges what she's been trying to ignore. This isn't just fascination or artistic inspiration. This is love in its purest, most terrifying form. That evening, she arrives at the park with a different energy, her usual nervousness replaced by a quiet determination. She finds Nara in their usual spot, but tonight there's a restlessness about her that Ivy has never seen before. You're different tonight, Nara says before Ivy can even sit down. Your heartbeat is steadier, but your breathing is shallower. Something has changed. Ivy settles beside her, marveling at how Nara's supernatural senses make it impossible to hide anything. I've been thinking about what you told me. About your eyes, about the curse. Nara's posture becomes defensive. And I realized I don't care. The words hang in the air between them, bold and irreversible. Nara turns toward her, and Ivy can see the conflict playing out across her features, hope and fear warring for dominance. You don't understand what you're saying, Nara whispers. I understand perfectly. Ivy reaches out, her fingers tracing the air just inches from Nara's face. I understand that you're kind and brilliant and mysterious. I understand that you make me feel things I've never felt before. I understand that I'm falling in love with you, and whatever is under those bandages doesn't change that. Nara's breath catches, and for a moment, she seems to lean into Ivy's almost touch. Love, she repeats, as if the word is foreign to her. Yes. Do you know how long it's been since someone said that to me? Since someone looked at me, really looked at me, and saw something worth loving. Ivy's heart breaks at the pain in Nara's voice. How long? Lifetimes. Literally lifetimes. Nara's voice becomes dreamy, distant. I remember the last person who claimed to love me. It was 1847 and I was living in a small town in Maine. He was a writer like you're an artist. He said he loved mysteries, loved the darkness in my stories. He begged me to show him the truth. What happened? Nara's smile is bitter. He saw my eyes, and he screamed. Not just surprise or shock. Pure, primal terror. He ran from the house and never came back. 3 days later, I heard he'd left town completely, telling everyone who would listen that he'd encountered a demon. Ivy feels a surge of protective anger. He was a coward. He was human, Nara corrects. He was normal. He had a normal reaction to something abnormal. I'm not him. No. Nara agrees, her voice soft with wonder. You're not. You're. She pauses, searching for words. You're painting me with colors that don't exist, aren't you? I can feel it, the way you see me. It's like being touched by sunlight after years of shadow. They sit in silence for a while, the weight of Ivy's confession settling between them like a bridge they're both afraid to cross. Finally, Nara speaks again. There's something else you should know. About why I stay in this park, why I'm always here. Tell me. This place is special. It's a thin place, where the veil between worlds is gossamer instead of steel. People like me, we're drawn to places like this. They're the only places where we can exist without constantly fighting against reality itself. Ivy looks around the park with new eyes, noting how the shadows seem deeper here, how the air feels charged with possibility. People like you? Cursed people. Ancient people. People who belong to the old stories, the ones your world has forgotten how to tell. The narrator observes, most people, when confronted with the impossible, choose to disbelieve. But artists are different. Artists know that reality is just one interpretation of the world, and that truth often wears the mask of impossibility. Show me, Ivy says, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. Nara goes very still. Show you what? Your eyes. Show me what everyone else ran from. For a long moment, Nara doesn't move. Then, slowly, she raises her hands to her face, her fingers finding the edge of the bandages. If I do this, if I show you the truth, there's no going back. You'll either accept me completely, or you'll join the long list of people who couldn't. I accept you already, Ivy says. Whatever I see, it won't change how I feel. Nara's hands tremble as she begins to unwrap the bandages, layer after layer of white cloth falling away like veils. Promise me something, she whispers. Anything. If you run, don't look back. Don't try to find me again. Let me keep the memory of this moment, before you knew what I really was. Ivy reaches out and stills Nara's hands. I promise I won't run. It's a promise that will be tested in ways she cannot imagine. The bandages fall away slowly, like a ritual being performed in reverse. Ivy watches, her heart pounding, as Nara's face is revealed inch by inch. Her skin is even paler without the white cloth, luminous in the twilight. Her features are delicate, almost ethereal, with high cheekbones and lips that seem carved from rose quartz. And then Nara opens her eyes. Ivy's breath stops completely. Where human eyes should be brown or blue or green, Nara's eyes burn with an inner fire that shifts between crimson and gold. They're not just red, they're molten, like looking into the heart of a star that has learned to grieve. Ancient wisdom swirls in their depths, along with centuries of loneliness, and a pain so profound it seems to have weight. But it's not the color that makes Ivy's hands tremble. It's the power she can feel radiating from those eyes, the sense that she's looking into something that belongs to a different world entirely. The air around them seems to shimmer and bend, and Ivy can suddenly hear whispers in languages she doesn't recognize. "Now you see," Nara says, her voice heavy with resignation. "Now you understand why I wear the bandages." Ivy stares, unable to look away. The logical part of her mind is screaming that this is impossible, that eyes can't glow like coals, that the very air can't shimmer with otherworldly energy. But the artist in her, the part that has always known that reality is far stranger and more beautiful than most people dare to believe, is completely enchanted. "They're beautiful," she whispers. Nara's expression shifts from resignation to shock.
What?
"Your eyes. They're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Ivy's voice gains strength as she speaks. "They're like looking at the birth of galaxies, or the moment lightning is born from storm clouds. They're terrifying and magnificent and absolutely gorgeous." For a moment, Nara is speechless. Then tears begin to fall from those impossible eyes, and where they touch the ground, Ivy swears she can see tiny flowers beginning to bloom. "You're not afraid," Nara says, her voice filled with wonder. "I'm terrified," Ivy admits. "But not of you. I'm terrified of how much I love you, how much I want to spend my life looking into those eyes and seeing new colors every day." But even as she says the words, Ivy can feel something shifting inside her. The logical part of her mind is fighting back, throwing up barriers of disbelief and fear. This isn't possible. This isn't real. This is madness. And in that moment of doubt, something changes in Nara's expression. The hope that had been blooming in her face withers, replaced by the terrible knowledge of someone who has lived the scene before. "You're fighting it," Nara observes sadly. "I can see it happening. Your mind is trying to make sense of something that doesn't fit into your world." "No, It's okay," Nara says, beginning to reach for her bandages. "I understand. I've always understood." But Ivy catches her hands, stopping her from covering her eyes again. "Don't. Please don't hide from me." Yet even as she speaks, Ivy can feel the fear growing stronger. Because looking into Nara's eyes, she can see things that shouldn't exist, glimpses of other worlds, other times, other lives. She can feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her, the knowledge that she's touching something ancient and powerful and completely beyond her comprehension. The narrator reflects, "This is the moment when love is tested not by grand gestures or noble sacrifices, but by the simple, terrifying question of whether we can accept someone whose very existence challenges everything we thought we knew about the world." "I can see it in your face," Nara says, her voice gentle but infinitely sad. "The fear is winning." Ivy wants to deny it, wants to prove that she's stronger than her terror. But she can feel herself beginning to pull away, her body responding to instincts older than thought. The rational part of her mind is screaming that this is impossible, that she's lost her grip on reality, that she needs to run. "I'm sorry," she whispers, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry." And then, despite every promise she's made, despite the love that fills her heart to overflowing, Ivy stands and runs. She runs through the park, her footsteps echoing off the pathways like gunshots. She runs past the joggers and the dog walkers, past the mothers with strollers and the couples holding hands. She runs until her lungs burn and her legs ache, until she reaches the safety of her apartment where she can lock the door and pretend that the last hour never happened. Behind her, in the park, Nara sits alone on the bench, her supernatural eyes still uncovered, tears falling like shooting stars in the darkness. She doesn't call out, doesn't try to follow. She simply sits and grieves for another love lost to fear, another heart that couldn't bear the weight of her truth. The narrator concludes, and so the curse perpetuates itself, not through magic or malice, but through the simple, tragic fact that love is often not enough to overcome fear. Nara had hoped that this time would be different, that an artist's heart might be brave enough to see beauty in the impossible. But hope, as she had learned too many times before, is often just another word for heartbreak. 3 days pass, and Ivy hasn't left her apartment. She's called in sick to her part-time job at the art supply store, canceled her standing coffee date with her best friend, and ignored the concerned voicemails from her mother. Instead, she sits in front of her easel, trying to paint what she saw in Nara's eyes, trying to capture something that exists beyond the boundaries of normal reality. The paintings are wild, abstract things, swirls of red and gold and colors that don't have names. They're beautiful and terrible and completely incomprehensible to anyone who hasn't looked into the face of the impossible. Ivy stares at them, her heart aching with a mixture of love and terror. She keeps telling herself that it was all a hallucination, that stress and loneliness and too many late nights had combined to create an elaborate fantasy. But the paintings tell a different story. They're painted with the precision of someone who has seen exactly what she was trying to capture, who has looked into eyes that burn with the fire of dying stars. On the 4th day, she finally leaves her apartment. Not to go to the park, she's not ready for that yet, but to visit the city library. She needs answers, needs to understand what she encountered in Nara's eyes, needs to know if she's losing her mind or if the world is far stranger than she ever imagined. The library is a massive, old building with high ceilings and endless stacks of books. Ivy makes her way to the folklore section, pulling volumes on mythology, supernatural phenomena, and local legends. She spreads them across a table in a quiet corner and begins to read. The stories are remarkably consistent across cultures and centuries. There are always beings who exist on the border between worlds, who carry curses that make them beautiful and terrible in equal measure. There are tales of people with eyes that show the truth of the world, who can see the connections between all living things but are doomed to exist in isolation because their gift is too powerful for ordinary minds to comprehend. One story, from a collection of Welsh folklore, makes Ivy's heart stop. It tells of a woman cursed to see the threads that connect all souls, whose eyes burned with the fire of creation itself. She was beautiful beyond measure, but anyone who looked into her eyes could see the truth of their own mortality, their own place in the vast web of existence. Most people couldn't bear that knowledge, so they fled from her, calling her a demon or a witch. But the story also tells of a young man who loved her despite her curse, who learned to look into her eyes without flinching. Their love was so pure that it broke the curse, allowing her to live as a normal woman. It's a beautiful story, but Ivy notices that it's the only one with a happy ending. All the others end in tragedy, with the cursed one dying alone and forgotten. The narrator observes, Ivy sat in the library until closing time, reading story after story, each one a variation on the same theme. Love that transcends the boundaries of normal reality, but love that ultimately fails because fear is stronger than acceptance. She began to understand that Nara wasn't just a person. She was a living embodiment of humanity's oldest stories, a reminder that the world is far more magical and terrifying than most people dare to believe. As she walks home through the darkening streets, Ivy can't stop thinking about Nara sitting alone in the park, her impossible eyes hidden once again behind layers of white bandages. She thinks about the tears that fell like shooting stars, about the centuries of loneliness that had been written across Nara's face in the moment before Ivy ran. She thinks about the Welsh story, about the young man who loved a cursed woman so much that he broke the spell through pure acceptance. She wonders if such love is possible in the real world, or if it only exists in fairy tales told by people who have never looked into the face of the impossible. But most of all, she thinks about the promise she made and broke, the promise to stay and accept whatever she saw. She thinks about the look in Nara's eyes when she realized that Ivy was going to run, the resigned sadness of someone who has lived this scene too many times to count. That night, Ivy dreams of red eyes and falling stars, of voices speaking in languages she doesn't recognize and flowers blooming in impossible colors. She dreams of Nara's face, beautiful and terrible and completely alone. And she dreams of herself, standing at a crossroads between love and fear, trying to choose which path to take. When she wakes, she knows what she has to do. It takes Ivy 3 more days to gather the courage to return to the park. She spends the time painting, trying to capture not just what she saw in Nara's eyes, but what she felt, the overwhelming sense of connection, the knowledge that she was looking at something ancient and powerful and utterly unique. The paintings evolve as she works, becoming less abstract and more focused. She paints portraits of Nara with her eyes uncovered, her face illuminated by the inner fire that burns within her gaze. In these paintings, Nara doesn't look cursed or demonic. She looks like what she is, a woman who has loved and lost too many times, who carries the weight of centuries in her heart, who burns with a beauty that most people are too afraid to appreciate. When Ivy finally returns to the park, it's late in the evening, just as the sun is setting and the shadows are growing long. She carries her latest painting with her, wrapped in brown paper like a gift. Her heart pounds as she makes her way down the familiar pathways, but this time it's not fear that drives her, it's determination. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and an approaching storm. Distant thunder rumbles, and the wind whips through the trees, rustling the autumn leaves with a sound like anxious whispers. Ivy finds their usual bench empty. Her stomach drops. Had Nara given up on her? Had she left forever? Then, through the deepening twilight, she sees a figure by the ancient willow tree, standing rather than sitting.
Nara.
But something is different. Her usual simple black dress is gone, replaced by what looks like a dark, hooded cloak that billows in the wind. Her posture is rigid, almost ritualistic, and a chilling sense of finality emanates from her. She isn't just waiting. She's preparing for something. Ivy's breath catches. Nara's hands are already at the bandages around her eyes. Not unwrapping them as if to reveal, but as if to remove them, perhaps to cast them aside forever, signaling an end to her fragile connection to any hope of human contact. Nara! Ivy cries out, her voice carried on the wind. Nara freezes, her hands still. She slowly turns, her head cocked, listening. The wind dies down for a moment, and in the sudden quiet, Ivy can hear the rapid beat of Nara's own heart, a frantic drum against the silence. "You came back," Nara whispers, her voice brittle with disbelief and a ghost of hope. "I promised I wouldn't run," Ivy says, advancing slowly, holding out the wrapped painting like an offering. "I broke that promise. And I'm sorry. I was terrified." Nara's hands fall away from her bandages, but she doesn't move towards Ivy. "The fear always wins, Ivy. It always does." Her voice is hollow, resigned. "I understand. This is goodbye, then." "No." Ivy rushes the last few steps, stopping just before Nara. The painting feels heavy in her trembling hands. "This isn't goodbye. It's a second chance. For both of us." Rain begins to fall, a cold, insistent drizzle that quickly turns into a downpour, mirroring their first meeting. Nara's cloak, however, remains untouched by the rain, shimmering faintly. "I thought I couldn't accept it," Ivy continues, her voice unwavering despite the thunder that rumbles overhead. "I saw your eyes, and my mind broke. It screamed impossible. But my heart never stopped seeing you." She pushes the painting into Nara's hands. "I painted this for you, so you can understand what I truly saw. What I see now." Nara takes the painting, her fingers tracing the rough paper. She holds it up, angled toward her face, her other senses reaching out, trying to comprehend. Ivy watches, heart pounding, as Nara's pale fingers slowly unwrap the brown paper. The canvas is revealed. It's a portrait of Nara, her face serene, eyes uncovered, burning with that impossible crimson and gold fire. But around them, Ivy has painted not terror, but constellations, swirling galaxies, and soft, blooming nebulae. It's a depiction of cosmic beauty, not monstrousness. It is Nara, seen through Ivy's loving, unblinking artistic soul. Nara's hands tremble as she holds the painting. She touches the canvas with her fingertips, feeling the texture of the paint, sensing the light and shadow. Her lips part slightly. You truly saw this? Nara whispers, her voice filled with a fragile, almost painful wonder. You saw this? I saw you, Ivy says, her voice thick with emotion. I saw the loneliness, and the power and the pain. But most of all, I saw the beauty. The impossible, magnificent beauty. Nara's gaze, hidden behind the bandages, seems to fix on Ivy's face. The air around them crackles with tension, the rain falling harder, the thunder closer. I was going to leave, Nara confesses, her voice barely audible over the storm. To go deeper into the old places, where no human could ever find me again. To finally let the last of my hope die. Don't, Ivy pleads, reaching out, covering Nara's hands that still hold the painting. Please don't.
Teach me.
Teach me how to look at them without flinching. Teach me how to see the world as you do. Teach me how to be brave enough for you. Nara's eyes, hidden still, seem to soften. A ghost of a smile touches her lips, more real than any Ivy has seen before. Her hands, holding the painting, are no longer trembling. They are steady. Slowly, deliberately, Nara reaches up. Her fingers go to the medical tape, to the edge of the pristine white bandages that have hidden her for centuries. The storm rages around them, but in the small space between them, a profound silence falls. One layer of bandage comes off, then another, then another. Each piece of white cloth falls to the rain-soaked ground, a testament to fear, a symbol of concealment. Ivy watches, her heart full, her gaze fixed, ready to truly see. The last bandage unravels and falls. Nara opens her eyes. Crimson and gold fire blazes in the twilight, swirling with ancient wisdom and luminous pain. The air shimmers, the park seems to hum with a secret energy, and Ivy can feel the weight of countless unseen connections, the whisper of other worlds. It is terrifying, magnificent, and utterly real. But this time, Ivy doesn't flinch. She doesn't scream. She doesn't run. Instead, she steps closer, her honey-brown eyes meeting Nara's impossible gaze. She looks into the fiery depths, and she sees not a monster, but the woman she loves, finally, fully revealed. The fear is still a tremor beneath her skin, a whisper in her mind, but it is no longer the victor. Love, fierce and unwavering, holds it at bay. You're here, Nara whispers, a single, clear tear of pure joy tracing a path down her cheek. You truly are here. Ivy lifts her hand, very slowly, very gently, and places it on Nara's cheek, thumb stroking beneath that impossible, burning eye. I'm here, Ivy says, her voice steady, filled with a love that has learned to embrace the monstrous, to find beauty in the unconventional, to choose acceptance over safety. And I'm not going anywhere. The rain falls, washing over them both, cleansing away centuries of fear and misunderstanding. The wind howls, a wild symphony of acceptance and revelation. And as Ivy gazes into Nara's tragic, beautiful eyes, she sees not an ending, but a beginning. A story, finally, truly rewritten. Months later, the park is bathed in the soft, green light of spring. Sunlight filters through new leaves, dappling the pathways. Bird song fills the air. Ivy sits on their usual bench, her sketchbook open. She's drawing a cluster of spring wildflowers, capturing their vibrant colors with a renewed sense of clarity and joy. Her art is different now, infused with a deeper understanding of the unseen, a subtle shimmer that makes her gallery rejections a distant memory. She's finally found her voice, not just as an artist, but as a person who truly sees. A figure emerges from the trees, moving with a grace that is both human and otherworldly. She wears a simple dress, her long black hair braided with small, intricate silver pieces. Her face is radiant, serene. Nara walks directly to the bench, her footsteps light on the damp earth. There are no bandages on her eyes. They are still the impossible crimson and gold, still burning with an inner fire, but the raw terror they once inspired is gone. Instead, they hold a profound calm, a luminous acceptance. She doesn't need to hide them anymore. Not from Ivy. Not from the world, because Ivy has taught her how to truly be seen. The rain yesterday told me it would be a beautiful day today, Nara says, her voice like velvet, but now with a lightness, a human warmth that wasn't there before. She reaches for Ivy's hand, her touch no longer cold marble, but warm flesh. It is, Ivy agrees, lacing her fingers through Nara's. She still feels the faint energy from Nara's eyes, the quiet hum of ancient magic, but it no longer overwhelms her. It simply is. A part of Nara, a part of their shared reality. Nara leans her head on Ivy's shoulder, and for a long moment, they simply sit in comfortable silence, listening to the world around them. Nara's head shifts slightly. Can you describe it to me again, Ivy? Nara asks, her voice soft, curious. The way the light hits the leaves, the exact shade of green in the new grass. I can feel it now, the warmth, the life. But I want to see it through your eyes. Ivy smiles, closing her own eyes, pulling Nara closer. She begins to describe the world, painting pictures with her words, just as she does with her brush. And as she speaks, she knows that she has finally found her true subject, her true purpose, and a love that, unlike the old stories, will not be defeated by fear, but transformed by acceptance. The narrator concludes, some stories are written in ink. Others are etched in the heart. And sometimes, the most profound love isn't about fixing what's broken, but about learning to see the impossible beauty in its shattered pieces and daring to stay.